It is time now for us to take a look at some of our headlines for this Tuesday morning. The United States is now going to be out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership thanks to an executive order signed by Donald Trump on Monday, something which has, garnered a lot of praise, actually, from various circles, including the ultra-conservative and Bernie Sanders. Go figure. Speaking of the ultra-conservative, even right-wing websites are now calling out the Trump administration over the use of that term alternative facts. Something which came, of course, when Trump insisted that more people were at his inauguration than any other inauguration. This is something, of course, that we're probably going to see more of as time goes on, this idea of alternative facts being presented by government entities. Speaking of which, the EU is now escalating its campaign against what they're calling Russian propaganda. It's specifically along the same lines of what was just authorized at the end of December here in the United States. Inside the NDAA, they actually have an arm of the government in the EU spending taxpayer money to counter the propaganda, what they're calling it propaganda, from the Russians. Anything that they don't agree with, they're calling propaganda, and it needs to be countered, of course, and they're looking for more money to do it again and again and again. The Ukraine has denied citizenship to the foreign mercenaries that have been fighting alongside other Ukrainians for the Ukrainian freedom. It's one of those promises that was made that is being broken. The Pentagon has said that it is absolutely rubbish, this idea that the Russians have claimed a joint air mission with the United States over Syria. They said that's propaganda. Moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, something that was talked about during the campaign, now it may be slipping down Trump's agenda as the reality of how much it would entail, not just in terms of the actual nitty-gritty of it, but in terms of world relations. It's no longer a priority to move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So that's nowhere near as high as the top of the agenda as some other things. Trump spoke about a government hiring freeze yesterday. Apparently more symbolism than actual savings in that. A lot of the freezing would be of unfilled positions that they're not spending the money on anyway. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected appeals to restore the Texas voter ID law. I don't know if you heard about that. It required someone to actually show a photograph saying, I am the person that is showing up here to vote. No, it was called discriminatory. So the Supreme Court's not going to hear it. I don't know what that's going to do for the future of voting in this country, but I'll let your imaginations run wild with it. There's a new class of submarine. The Russian has now come up with their fourth of the Yasen-class, and it just went through its most recent tests, the hydraulic tests, apparently successfully. The Dutch Prime Minister has made a very bold statement to those, if you don't like it here, then leave. And a global gag rule has been reinstated by Trump, curbing abortion services from any non-governmental organization that receives taxpayer money. In light of some questions of the extension of the leases of some naval and air bases in Syria, a top Russian lawmaker has said that Russia has no plans to set up any new military bases abroad. And speaking of Russia, Tesla apparently has taken the lead in the sales of electric cars in Russia. And lastly, a poll that was done by ABC News, but was then picked up in Russian news sources, the most conservative and religious Americans have actually been developing an affection for Russia since the election, or during the election, or however it's related. I'm sure it has everything to do with the long, deep desire to have Russia as our brothers, right? Anyway, that's what we've got for our national and international news. Make sure you check out the Alaska News here as well. And my commentary today is going to focus on why it is that I'm opposed personally to TPP, and whether you're talking about Donald Trump getting rid of it or it falling under its own weight or whatever. Look, when Mothra comes and starts destroying Tokyo, you don't care if it's Godzilla that kills Mothra or if, you know what I mean. You're glad Mothra's dead. That's all I'm saying about the TPP. And if you like what I'm doing, please become a supporter either through Patreon or on the website by a direct subscription, radiofreespeech.com. Thanks.